everyone. How are you? My name is Priya Pandya, and I'm here to take your editorial analysis from critical reasoning's perspective. Now, you need to understand, here that this particular analysis is not just dissecting an editorial, but also to help you guide through, mocks, like how you can increase your scores in mocks. What are the things that you need to keep in mind? What are the takeaways from the passage that will help you in the formation, right, of main idea, which from if you have the main idea in place, you can take out the assumption, the conclusion, strengthening, weakening, and so forth, right? So, having said that, let's today I have picked up a topic which is to do with economics. और इकोनॉमिक्स को लेकर के बहुत जो मेरा अपना तजुर्बा रहा है बच्चों को लेकर के वो बहुत है कि दे फेल टू अंडरस्टैंड मल्टीपल थिंग्स टर्म्स राइट एंड उसमें प्रॉब्लम बहुत आ जाती है और इकोनॉमिक्स पर से सबका फेवरेट टॉपिक भी नहीं होता है सब्जेक्ट भी नहीं होता है तो बहुत इश्यूज आते हैं ठीक है लेकिन मैं यहाँ पर आपको बताना चाहती हूँ कि पीपल गेट लॉस्ट स्टूडेंट्स गेट लॉस्ट इन निटिग्रिटीज लाइक छोटी छोटी चीजों में स्टैटिस्टिक्स डेटा क्योंकि अगर हम इकोनॉमिक्स का पैसेज पढ़ते हैं तो वो स्टैटिस्टिकल डेटा के बिना तो होता नहीं है देन देर आर सर्टन टर्म्स जहां पर वो हमेशा फंसते हैं तो यहाँ पर मैं एक चीज आपको बताना चाहती हूँ गाइस कि देखिए पहली बात तो यह है कि इकोनॉमिक्स इतना बड़ा है देयर इज माइक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स देयर इज मैक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स तो आप कितने कितने टॉपिक्स को सब्जेक्ट मैटर्स को उठा सकते हैं बिकॉज यू हैव 5 subjects to study मतलब आपका तो full packed jam packed डे रहता है and I totally empathize with you so जब भी आप कोई पैसेज उठाते हैं हमने एडिटोरियल लिया ही क्यों है क्योंकि यूजुअली इकोनॉमिक्स के पैसेजेस मतलब इकोनॉमिक्स जो एडिटोरियल आर्टिकल्स होते हैं वो आपके किसी ना किसी पैसेज के रूप में आते ही हैं so now what happens over here is that you need to first of all understand you can't know everything about economics even the commerce students right and you can't be studying every detail here and so students get into this that I need to know everything about economics so one thing that I'd like to tell you is कि पहले तो कुछ जो बेसिक चीजें हैं आप उस पर जरूर वर्क कर सकते हैं अगर आपको फेमिलियरिटी डेवलप करनी है क्योंकि फेमिलियरिटी डेवलप करने से स्पीड और कॉम्प्रिहेंशन दोनों में फर्क तो पड़ता है तो थोड़ा सा आप बैंकिंग का रोल आप समझिए आरबीआई का रोल आपको वैसे भी पता होगा थोड़ा सा उसको आपको ब्रश अप करना है जीडीपी क्या होता है उसको आपको ब्रश अप करना है देयर आर सम जैसे सीपीआई है सीपीआई आपका जो है कंज्यूमर प्राइस इंडेक्स उसको आपको थोड़ा सा स्टडी करना है आज मैं डेफिनेटली जो इकोनॉमिक्स का पेपर मैं सॉरी एडिटोरियल उठा रही हूँ उसको मैं उससे पहले मैं कुछ फैसिलिटेटर्स दूंगी दीज आर द टर्म्स विच वी विल डिस्कस एंड देन गो ऑन टू द पैसेज ठीक है तो आपको एक जनरल बर्ड्स आई व्यू पहले लेना है कि ऑथर थ्रू दैट पैसेज कहना क्या चाह रहा है क्या हमारी जो इकोनॉमिक खासकर आप देखेंगे कि वो उठाता है जीडीपी को लेके और ऑथर जब भी जीडीपी को लेके उठाते हैं कोई भी बात करते हैं तो उसको लेकर के वो या तो अच्छा बोलता है या बुरा बोलता है या तो बताता है कि वाकई में ये जीडी जो है इज अ ट्रू रिफ्लेक्शन ऑफ इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट एंड ग्रोथ और ही सेज दिस पर्टिकुलर जीडीपी प्रोजेक्शन इज नॉट a true reflection of economic growth, right? So you have to take the primary argument, keep that in mind, keep the author's message in mind whenever an editorial is being written. Basically the editor is passing on some information, some message to the reader, and you have to keep that in mind. Okay. So having said that, let's now go on to the first slide. Now I want to make you understand is कि ये facilitators हैं ये कुछ ऐसे terms हैं जो कि मैंने editorial passage में देखा था मतलब article में देखा था तो जो मैं आपको सामने discuss करूंगी so let's understand what retail price is. Retail price refers to the final price at which a product or service is sold to consumers in a retail setting. This is the price that consumers pay when purchasing an item from a store, online retailer or any other direct to consumer outlet and it typically includes the cost of production, transportation, marketing and a profit margin for the retailer. Retail prices can vary depending on factors such as location, demand and competition. So this is about retail price. Now coming to what is retail inflation. Retail inflation refers to an increase in the prices of goods and services that consumers buy at the retail level. When retail inflation rises, it means that the cost of living is increasing as consumers have to spend more money to purchase the same goods and services. Okay, so that is what is known as a retail inflation. Now let's understand what is consumer price index. Consumer price index is a statistical tool. Actually, it's a measure that tracks the changes in the price level of a basket of goods and services over time. Okay, गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज टिपिकली परचेज बाय हाउसहोल्ड्स. ठीक है, आप आपको वो एक स्टैटिस्टिकल डेटा उनके पास होता है कि कंज्यूमर जो है एक मिडिल क्लास, बिलो मिडिल क्लास, ठीक है, और या अबव मिडिल क्लास की जो हम बात करते हैं, उनका एक बास्केट होता है कि वो कितना गुड्स एंड परचेसेस करते हैं, उसका मेजरमेंट होता है. वो एक टूल होता है जो कि बेसिकली एक एवरेज निकाला जाता है. So it reflects the average change in prices over time that consumers pay for a fixed set of items, which can include food, clothing, housing, transportation, healthcare, and other everyday items. Now, the CPI is widely used to measure inflation. आपको ये भी दें कि इसका पर्पस क्या है. ये CPI क्या है, ये तो हमने पता लगा लिया, but इसका पर्पस क्या है. तो CPI जो है, it is widely used to measure inflation. A rising CPI indicates increasing prices, which means inflation is occurring. Conversely, a declining CPI suggests deflation, where prices are falling. So ये आपका एक consumer price index की हम बात कर रहे हैं. Now we move on to the next one, which is comparison to core inflation. Now this is also a term that has been used in the passage, so let me help you out. While headline in inflation includes all items, core inflation excludes food and energy prices to provide a more stable view of inflation trends. Core inflation is often used by policymakers to make decisions as it tends to be less affected by short-term price shocks. ठीक है? तो ये जो core inflation है, इसमें आप जो अपने जो फूड एंड एनर्जी प्राइसेस हैं उनको आप एक्सक्लूड करते हो, क्योंकि फूड एंड एनर्जी प्राइसेस बहुत वॉलेटाइल होते हैं, वो बहुत जल्दी ऊपर नीचे होते हैं. तो जिसकी वजह से जो प्रॉपर अगर एक पॉलिसी मेकर को डिसीजन पे आना है तो वो इनको एक्सक्लूड करता है, इनको मार्कर की तरह नहीं लेता है. ठीक है, और उसके हिसाब से पॉलिसी बनाता है. नाउ व्हाट इज अ हेडलाइन इन्फ्लेशन? हेडलाइन इन्फ्लेशन रेफर्स टू द टोटल इन्फ्लेशन विद इन एन इकोनॉमी. ठीक है, ये हेडलाइन इन्फ्लेशन क्या है? टोटल इन्फ्लेशन है विद इन इकोनॉमी, जो विच ऑल्सो इंक्लूड्स गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज इन द कंज्यूमर प्राइस इंडेक्स, जो कि गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज को भी लेता है इन CPI. It is called headline because it includes the full spectrum of price changes across the economy without excluding any volatile components like food and energy prices. ठीक है, तो ये पूरा जो हेडलाइन है जिसको हम बोलते हैं, ये पूरा का पूरा जो है आपके सारे मार्कर्स, इकोनॉमी के सारे मार्कर्स जो इन्फ्लेशन अफेक्टेड होते हैं उनको लेकर के चलता है बेसिकली. ठीक है, okay, so this was just giving you an idea. Now guys, of course I have given you this idea because once we read the passage it is going to help you out, but at the same time as I said, you can't have every term. ये कुछ ऐसी term है ये जो मैंने जानबूझ के आपके सामने रखी हैं, क्योंकि कहीं ना कहीं पैसेजेस में ये आपको कोर उस तरीके से आती हैं. ठीक है, अभी इन्फ्लेशन को लेकर के बहुत सारे बजट को भी लेकर के इन्फ्लेशन के उसमें वेदर द बजट इज एक्चुअली टारगेटिंग द इन्फ्लेशन और नॉट, बहुत सारी बातें हो रही हैं. तो आपको थोड़ा सा मैंने जरूर बताया है टू हेल्प यू असेसिंग कि हमें इसको किस तरह से लेकर के चलना है. ठीक है, नाउ लेट्स कम टू द पैसेज. Now let's read the passage, and in the passage this red ink actually highlights the author's view. उसके जो प्राइमरी आर्ग्यूमेंट है या प्राइमरी आर्ग्यूमेंट्स, सबसेट आर्ग्यूमेंट्स, प्राइमरी आर्ग्यूमेंट्स, इनको लेकर के चल रहा है. So let's understand the RBI's Monetary Policy Committee has for a 9th straight meeting chosen to keep benchmark interest rates unchanged. ठीक है, unchanged यहाँ देखिए important aspect है, as it continues to battle retail inflation that has stubbornly stayed above its medium-term target of 4% for 57 months and is beginning to undermine consumer confidence. Laying out the rationale is the logical reasoning behind why they have let the interest rates remain unchanged, is RBI Governor Shaktikant Das was emphatic that there was no room for complacency given the risks that persistently elevated food price pressures pose to households' inflation expectations and broader monetary policy credibility. Elevated food prices, he stressed, had not only slowed disinflation in the April June quarter, but had also extended their momentum into July with high frequency food price data pointing to sizable month on month increase in key vegetable prices. Citing Department of Consumer Affairs data, he said tomato prices had surged 62% sequentially, while onion had all become almost 23% costlier than in June, and potato prices had increased 18%. Now, these statistical database basically point out to the inflation, the percentage inflation. Okay, now so you're not supposed to get lost in it. You have to understand the crux of the matter. So food prices with a weight of about 46% in the overall CPI. Now, this is important because food prices are playing a huge role. It's look at the contribution of food prices in the overall CPI, which is close to 46%. Could not afford to be overlooked, not just for the impact on headline inflation, but far more significantly because consumers related the most to the impact food prices had on monthly household budgets. So natural है कि ये इतना जो आपका सीपीआई पे जो फूड का प्राइस अपना जो इन्फ्लेशन है वो सीधे सीधे कंज्यूमर के बजट को हिट कर रहा है. He indicated without explicitly referencing it that the suggestion in the economic survey urging policymakers to consider delinking food prices from the inflation targeting framework made little sense in the circumstances. So this particular suggestion that इकोनॉमिक्स सर्वे जो अर्ज कर रहा है पॉलिसी मेकर्स को कि आप फूड प्राइसेस को डीलिंक कर दीजिए फ्रॉम द इन्फ्लेशन टारगेट, उस चीज को आरबीआई जो है बिल्कुल भी तवज्जो अभी तो नहीं दे रहा है. एंड एट द सेम टाइम the MPC which voted by a 4-2 majority to hold interest rates and keep the policy stance focused on the withdrawal of accommodation to ensure that inflation aligns to the target, also raised its projection for headline retail inflation in the July-September quarter to 4.4%. 60 basis point higher than the 3.8% base projected in June. The rate panel also posited slightly faster inflation in the third fiscal quarter than it had forecast previously, lifting the projection by 10 basis point to 4.7%. In a clear sign that the near-term inflation outlook appears less reassuring than it did just 2 months ago. So ये basically कह रहा है spillover effect हो रहा है. पहले अपना जो है जून तक की बात थी, प्रोजेक्टेड जो जून था, अब वो जुलाई सितंबर तक जो है इन्फ्लेशन स्पिलओवर की बात हो रही है और प्रोजेक्शन जो है लिफ्टिंग इट बाय 10 basis point की वो बात कर रहे हैं. And while Mr. Das noted that in June vegetable prices had contributed about 35% to headline inflation, the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy in an analysis forecast price pressures in vegetable to sustain well into the festive season through till early November. So we are talking of Diwali here. We're talking of that it is going to be there. Okay, so that is not going anywhere till early November, adding pressure on retail headline inflation. Okay. Core inflation may also have bottomed out, according to the MPC, which flagged the risks of spillover from food prices, as well as the impact of mobile tariff revisions may have on broader non-food inflation. Policymakers hearteningly reiterated means repeated again, the truism that without ensuring enduring price stability, growth may at best be tenuous. Tenuous means weak, okay, not substantial. So here is the basic idea that they are talking about, that retail inflation, food inflation is actually not going down, and it's one of the major contributors to the CPI. So it is going to kind of spill over to the next few months. And this does not bode well because price stability is very important for growth, which may at best be weak. Okay, so that is the overall gist of the passage. If you look at it, it is a concern right? It is a concern that is coming up, so it has a negative tone. It's not very positive that we are talking about here. So having said that, now अगर आपने समझा हो कि कहाँ कहाँ मैंने आपको ऑथर के मेन, अगर हम ये देखें तो ये एक तरह से उसका बेसिक जो प्राइमरी आर्ग्यूमेंट है उसकी तरफ ये जा रहा है, ठीक है, और वो कहना क्या चाह रहा है उसके आप अंडरस्टैंड कर सकते हैं। अब इसको हमने ब्रेक डाउन द पैसेज इनटू पॉइंट्स, ठीक है। नाउ दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट एक्सरसाइज that even you can do initially. It may take you a while. In my previous editorial analysis also I had mentioned, kindly do this, okay, because this is really, why are we doing this? Because our mind will be completely focused on what is written. We have to pick up the crucial elements from the passage when we are doing mocks and in CLAT. And literally this is, you don't have to do this in CLAT or in mocks. What I'm saying is do it in your free time whenever you're doing an editorial analysis or picking up an article. This exercise will help you to focus in mocks, right, and in CLAT. So now let's look at it, break down the passage into points. RBI's monetary policy stance अगर हम लेते हैं, ये देखिए, the RBI, इसको इस तरह से मैंने आपके सामने कोर रखा है, ठीक है। The RBI's Monetary Policy Committee has decided to keep benchmark interest rates unchanged for the ninth consecutive meeting due to persistent retail inflation. Inflation concerns क्या है? Retail inflation has remained above the RBI's medium-term target of 4% for 57 months, impacting consumer confidence. Now you can write, you don't have to write it in your words. Just pick up the points. Pick up the points from the editorial and just keep उसको सिर्फ jot down करिए, ठीक है? Food price pressure क्या बोलता है? Elevated food prices, especially in the key vegetables like tomato, onions, and potatoes, have slowed the disinflation process and the extended inflation momentum into July. Food prices hold significant weight in the consumer price index and heavily influence household budgets. Now let's look at the policy credibility. RBI Governor Shaktikant Das emphasized the risks of complacency due to ongoing food price pressures, which could undermine the broader credibility of monetary policy. Now inflation projections आपके सामने दिए हुए हैं, ठीक है। Then you have core inflation and broader risks. Core inflation may have bottomed out with risks of spillover from food prices and potential impact from mobile tariff revisions on non-food inflation. Now policy focus on price stability. Policymakers reiterated that without enduring price stability, economic growth might be unstable, right? So that is the main crux of the matter that you had to understand. Now, once that, now what are you supposed to do? These are the key takeaways. Once you have the key takeaways in place, you can immediately put some pointers here and make it into what is the main idea. Now, guys, when we look at main idea is the main concern, the premise. Okay, the main premise. Now, what was the main premise? That the RBI has not changed the interest rate. Okay, persisted for the 9 consecutive. You don't have to write all this, but it remains unchanged. This is the main thing. And then the rationale comes up as to why they're doing it, because the retail prices are rocket high and they're trying, they can't, to curtail the inflation, they are doing this measure. Okay, now having said that, let's understand that what is the purpose of the author. First of all, you need to immediately take out why is the author, what is the message that he's putting across, what is he trying to say ultimately. So it is to inform readers that the RBI's decision to keep benchmark interest rate unchanged amid persistent inflationary pressures, particularly from rising food prices. पहला वो ये बताना चाह रहा है, ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है क्योंकि अनचेंज वाले को हम इग्नोर नहीं कर सकते क्योंकि ये मेन प्रेमाइस है आपका। फिर आता है द पैसेज एम्स टू एक्सप्लेन द रैशनल बिहाइंड दिस डिसीजन, highlighting the challenges posed by elevated inflation on consumer confidence and the broader economy. Third, he says it also seeks to emphasize the importance of maintaining price stability as a foundation for sustainable economic growth. That is his key point takeaway. So this plays a major role as a primary argument. Okay. Now, what is the main idea? Let's look at the main idea. The main idea of the passage is that the Reserve Bank of India's Monetary Policy Committee has decided to keep interest rates unchanged for the 9th consecutive time due to persistent inflationary pressures, particularly from rising food prices. The RBI is concerned about the impact of these price increase on consumer confidence and the broader economy, emphasizing the need for vigilance in maintaining price stability to ensure sustainable economic growth. The passage also notes that the near-term inflation outlook is less favorable than previously expected, with potential spillover effects from food prices to other sectors. So basically, this is what the entire main idea is. मेन आइडिया निकालने से आपके लिए बहुत अच्छा होगा बिकॉज इवेंचुअली अजम्पशन इसी के थ्रू निकल सकता है कंक्लूजन आज हमने प्रीवियस जो एडिटोरियल एनालिसिस किया था उसमें मैंने अजम्पशन को मेन पॉइंट बना करके आपके लिए लिया था this time I'm going to work around conclusion. So what I want to talk to you about is how to take out the conclusion, how to take out the assumption. Okay, so now keeping this in place, that you need to first have the main idea, the crux of it in your mind. See, again, this is an exercise you can do for a month. For those who are taking CLAT 2025, they can do this for a month where they can write down, and it is an essential exercise. Not, I personally believe, not just for LR section, but is also there for English. And overall, taking out the main idea helps you in assimilating the passage, and it helps you in एक तरह से कंसर्टेड एफर्ट है कि स्कैटर्ड थॉट्स नहीं होते हैं तो जब हम इस तरह से पैसेज को पढ़ते हैं और तुम्हारे स्कैटर्ड थॉट्स नहीं होते हैं विच इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट यू हैव टू इट हेल्प्स यू इन डेवलपिंग फोकस बहुत लोगों का इश्यू फोकस होता है मैम वी आर नॉट एबल टू फोकस ऑन द पैसेजेस वी आर नॉट एबल टू फोकस कंप्लीटली हमारा ध्यान भटक जाता है तो नाउ व्हेन यू राइट इट डाउन जब आप एडिटोरियल्स लिखेंगे ऑटोमेटिकली आपका ब्रेन जो है वो ट्रेन होता जाएगा टू फोकस ओके वो इधर से उधर नहीं होता है एंड इट इज एक्चुअली अ मेडिटेटिंग एक्सरसाइज okay for you right so now it's a meditative exercise now let's move on to the main conclusion एक होता है मेन कंक्लूजन अब दो तरह से आपके सामने कंक्लूजन पूछे जा सकते हैं मैं थोड़ा सा क्वेश्चन को भी इसमें इंक्लूड कर रही हूँ गाइस क्योंकि मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि एडिटोरियल एनालिसिस स्पेशली फ्रॉम द सीआर's perspective requires a bit of extension in terms of कि भाई थोड़ा सा हम कंक्लूजन की बात करें अब हमने बात करी थी पिछले बार व्हाट एन assumption is part of the argument as you know conclusion is something you derive okay now conclusions are two types that can be given in passages one is a main conclusion which is a summation kind of a summation or whatever that has been said in the passage उसको हम conclusion लेते हैं ठीक है it does have elements of premise it does have elements of the author's main point that is what one of the conclusions is so for example in conclusion the RBI has chosen to keep interest rates steady because inflation especially due to rising food prices remains a significant concern the central bank is focused on ensuring price stability to support long-term economic growth even as inflationary pressures are expected to continue in the near future so this is the main conclusion of the passage so whatever is the in the passage uska crux ye hai theek hai so that is also part of your main conclusion बट एक ऐसा भी कंक्लूजन होता है जो कि ड्रॉन फ्रॉम द पैसेज होता है दैट मीन्स व्हाट यू हैव कंक्लूडेड एक तो वो पूछेगा व्हाट इज द मेन कंक्लूजन ऑफ द पैसेज एक कई बार आपका इस तरह क्वेश्चन आता है व्हाट कंक्लूजन कैन बी ड्रॉन फ्रॉम द पैसेज सो कंक्लूजन ड्रॉन फ्रॉम द पैसेज इज योर व्हाट यू अराइव एट what is your derivation what is your understanding and conclusion so here the RBI's decision to keep interest rate unchanged reflects its focus on managing persistent inflation, particularly from rising food prices, to ensure long-term economic stability. Is the conclusion drawn कि basically RBI ये जो interest rate unchanged रख रहा है इससे क्या reflect हो रहा है that they are actually trying to ensure long-term economic stability by controlling the food price rising food prices. That's the main crux और ये हम draw कर सकते हैं तो थोड़ा सा difference है बाकी ड्रॉन में आप बिल्कुल तो अलग हो नहीं सकते हैं क्योंकि वो ही निकलेगा एट द एंड ऑफ द डे जो कि वहां पे लिखा हुआ है ठीक है दाएं बाएं का हमें उठाना ही नहीं है आपको सीधा सीधा यानी अगर आपकी आर्ग्यूमेंट यहां से यहां तक है तो इधर से ही आपका कंक्लूजन ड्रॉ होगा उसके आगे पीछे इफ्स एंड बट्स मत लगाइएगा you're not supposed to have because you have to consider every argument or every premise given in the editorials given in the passage to consider it to be true. You're not supposed to be challenging the premise. Whatever is given there, you have to take out the conclusion. Okay, so this was basically an idea that I was giving. Now there is a question in the making. I want you to solve one particular question here. Let's see, it's interesting. It's your intake on it. Question in the making is based on the passage, which of the following conclusions can be most logically drawn? So now since we are talking about conclusion here, let's look at it. Which is the correct answer? Read it. Okay, so let's understand. Based on this, C is the correct answer, and by now I'm sure that you know that C is the correct answer. But still, let's understand why A is not the correct answer. A goes against the entire crux of the matter because the RBI is likely to reduce interest rates in the near future. तो बिल्कुल ही opposite बात करी है. Near future में the spillover effects of the food price inflation, the retail inflation is going to be a spillover till the festive season. So reducing interest rate does not make sense at all. We cannot take it out from the passage, especially if the RBI has, as of now, kept the the interest rates unchanged. Okay, so this is something that we cannot conclude from the given passage. B, the RBI's focus on food prices indicates that inflation in other sectors is currently under control. Opposite of this is contrary to what is passage saying, that RBI's focus on food prices is actually there simply because it has a spillover effect onto the other sector. If you remember, इसमें ये बात करी गई थी कि जो इकोनॉमिस्ट हैं, जो बाकी लोग हैं, वो ये कह रहे हैं कि आप फूड एंड एनर्जी को कोर इन्फ्लेशन से अलग हटा करके इकोनॉमिक स्टेबिलिटी की तरफ जाइए, जो कि डिसमिस करा गया है. तो बेसिकली इसका मतलब ही है कि इट इज द अदर सेक्टर्स का इसका जो स्पिल ओवर है, बिकॉज इट इज 46% of the CPIs, 46, it contributes 46% to the CPI. Clearly इसका इम्पैक्ट दूसरे सेक्टर पे आएगा ही आएगा. इट इज नॉट अंडर कंट्रोल. अगर अंडर कंट्रोल होता तो फिर इकोनॉमिक स्टेबिलिटी की तरफ हम बात कर रहे होते. तो ये आपका रूल्ड आउट है. नाउ सी, अगर हम देखें, द आरबीआई डिसीजन टू कीप इंटरेस्ट रेट्स अनचेंज्ड reflects its concern about the long-term impact of persistent inflation on economic stability. This is the crux. This is the central idea. This is the crux of the matter. This is what we can derive from the from the editorial, that yes, the RBI's decision to keep interest rates unchanged, ये main था, reflects its concern about the long-term impact of persistent inflation on economic stability. Now let's look at the D1. The RBI believes that delinking food prices from the inflation targeting framework is necessary to manage overall inflation effectively. In the passage, the RBI dismisses the idea, although this idea had been suggested. If we kind of go back this particular section here, it talks about that, like, here. Okay, sorry, let's move up. It has been said somewhere that, आपका जो, एक मिनट, हाँ देखिए, core inflation may also have bottomed according to the MPC, which flagged the risk of spillover food as well as the mobile, you know, इसको भी अगर हम ले पीछे, so यहाँ पर वो बहुत बात करता है. He indicated without explicitly referencing it that the suggestion in the economic survey urging policymakers to consider delinking food prices from the inflation targeting framework made little sense in the circumstances. So automatically made little sense in the circumstances clearly says that ये जो आपका ऑप्शन है, डी ऑप्शन है, वो बेसिकली द आरबीआई का नहीं है. आरबीआई ने इसको पोजीशन को डिसमिस किया है. कुछ लोगों ने इकोनॉमिक्स सर्वे के थ्रू ये बात करी है, सजेशन दिया है कि डीलिंग कर देना चाहिए, जो कि आरबीआई का कहना है इट इज नॉट गोइंग टू सर्व द पर्पस. सो दिस इज कॉन्ट्ररी टू व्हाट इज गिवन इन द पैसेज. ओके, so guys, I hope you liked the passage, and we will be coming up with many more such editorial articles so that they help you out, right? So thank you so much for being with me.